All right, welcome back to the 19th episode of The Unknown. My name is Michael Volpe. I write at michaelvolpe.substack.com, and I'm reporting from Chicago, Illinois, and Cook County. This is Richard Lutman. He writes at luthmann.substack.com, near Fort Myers, which is Lee County, Florida,
Lee
somewhere in
County,
Florida.
Florida, Southwest Florida, south on the west side, right by the
It's
Gulf.
warm 363 out of 365 days where you're at.
It's nice. Very nice.
It's nice. All right. So we got a lot to talk about. You know what? I'm going to get started with a new segment that I wanted to talk about. What I'm going to do, when the election was ongoing, I tried to scour the internet to find mainstream media attacking the failed campaign of Kamala Harris. This segment's going to be easy. I'm going to look around, particularly in the mainstream media, attacking the Trump appointees. And the first one, let me find it. And oh, here we go. So this comes from the New York Times, and this goes after Kash Patel. And in effect, what this argues is that he inflated his role. He did not lead the Benghazi investigation as he claimed. He was basically a gopher, according to this thing. In fact, Mr. Patel, a former prosecutor, a former public defender, was a prosecutor in the department's counterterrorism section, where his assignments included work on the Benghazi investigation. But the section only supported the investigation, which was run by a team of prosecutors at the Office of the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, along with agents and analysts at the FBI. Mr. Patel took a junior position in the counterterrorism section in late January 2014. Well after the Benghazi investigation started, he left in April 2017. And it goes on. He took up the task when a predecessor in the counterterrorism division left. Records show that person started a detail working in the Senate office and at a later point before leaving the section. Here's what it says his contributions were. The current and former officials that include tests like helping search for material at various intelligence agencies that had to be turned over to defense lawyers and routing. He was a gopher, according to this article, in the investigation into Benghazi, when in reality, often burnishes his credentials as a former prosecutor, even as he portrays law enforcement agencies as politically inept. A critical piece of that narrative is the investigation into the attack on Libya. Mr. Patel was involved in that inquiry. He described it in his 2023 memoir and in a conversation on the Sean Ryan show. But he has both exaggerated his importance and misleadingly distorted the department's broader effort. What the article showed is that they got the main guy, but that it was very difficult to do operations inside Libya. So what the argument was is that if you went after every single guy, the collateral damage wasn't worth it. But what do you have to say about this? It looks like he bolsters his resume beyond what it actually should be.
There's a little-known politician out there, and he just got reelected to the office he was serving in. He coined a phrase maybe about, 8 or 10 years ago, called fake news. The guy's name is Donald Trump, and this is probably textbook fake news. It comes, number one, from the biggest purveyor of fake news we've ever seen, the New York Slimes. And number two, you look at who the sources are. The sources are unnamed sources within the FBI or formerly within the FBI. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Jim Comey himself. Who in their right mind, other than someone who believed in what they were doing in 2014, would take on the Benghazi issue into 2015 and 2016, knowing that Hillary Clinton may very well become the president of the United States? That tends to show that anybody inside that institution, the FBI, would be getting out of the way of anybody that will want to take the lead on an investigation as sensitive as this is, as important as this is, where Hillary Clinton, the target of your investigation, may be the president of the United States. The story doesn't make sense from that fact alone. You read the intro in there. This is like Comey sitting at a desk someplace saying, you know, when I was there and everything was hunky dory and we would do everything the right way, that guy was he was getting me cups of coffee and blah 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 blah. That's what this
You
reads
think
like.
he was running the investigation in reality? Like he
I think in
claimed?
reality they were putting it all on his desk because they said, well, you know, A, this guy is a true believer. He actually believes that there's something that should be done about Benghazi. And B, if Hillary gets in, then he's the fall guy. You know, that's
All right.
what
So
it
you
was.
think he wasn't
Come on.
lying and that this article is lying? All right.
I think
I don't think the
wait, no,
article is.
I'm not saying the article is lying. I'm saying that the sources in the article are not verifiable if they're there. They're sources for that nobody's
All
come
right.
on
You
and
think
said
this?
nobody's come on the record and said Cash Patel was a coffee gopher, and I know it
Well,
because we worked under me. There's not nobody in there that says that. It's all
right.
you know insinuation.
It's anonymous sources, but he wasn't quite a coffee gopher, but basically he was.
He wasn't. He was in charge of the investigation because everybody got out of his way.
Right.
All the Democrats got out of his way. All the career people inside the DOJ got out of his way. Think about it, Mike.
I disagree. I think he fibs on his resume like a lot of people do. We got a couple of Diddy updates that I wanted to get through. First of all, last week we talked about there's an allegation that he and Jay-Z had raped an underage. That story is falling apart. I don't believe it anymore, and I think it's a smear on Jay-Z, not Diddy so much, because there's a lot that's true about Diddy, but I don't think that Jay-Z did this. I don't know Jay-Z, so I'm not going to say he's never done anything bad, but that story's falling apart. However, wanted to get one other thing up, and this is interesting. So hold on. So let me find it. Okay. So this is another allegation against Diddy, and this is from 2007. And so this is a guy, and he said it was incredibly painful, and he is acting like it was nothing, and he seemed to be disconnected from it. Doe, who has amended his October lawsuit against Diddy, told CNN his figure shrouded, but it was abusive beyond belief, and it goes on. Doe recalled Combs was incredibly friendly, very gracious early at the party, even offered him a drink, which, quote, started to have some effect on me. Though he initially believed the drink was really strong, Doe had another and realized too late there was something wrong with the drink. Sadly, Sean Combs was waiting in the wings. He watched for some sort of a vantage point. And once I was in a helpless position, he was sure he was in a position of power. He took advantage. He held him down, overpowered, and ultimately sodomized him. All right, that's what this lawsuit says. So getting back to my original story of Derek Smith, another man who accuses Diddy of raping and sodomizing him. Here is part of this is part of an affidavit by an alleged witness. I observed Mr. Combs offer Mr. Smith, that's Derek Smith, the alleged victim, a drink. It was Jim Beam, I believe, and then Smith passed out. I then saw Mr. Combs, Mr. Smith pants off after taking his boots off, and I thought that was kind of strange. Then I saw Mr. Combs slide his dill out of a bag, and he had it onto Mr. Smith's butt cheeks, and all the while he was stroking his own dick, and then he took his dick and placed it on top of Mr. Smith's cheeks. That's according to an affidavit. Those two stories are pretty similar, am I right? That's two different alleged incidents, but pretty much the same MO. And those are not the only two times, and not just with men, but he slips you a drink and then he sodomizes you. That seems to be the modus operandi of Sean Combs. As I said, Jay-Z, I don't buy that story. That's the only time that he's come up. But Sean Combs, there's a lot of stories out there with the similar MO. He slips you a drink, he sodomizes you.
I hate to say it, Mike. The MO that you're talking about is basically the date rape MO. It's the same MO for Bill Cosby. It's the same MO for thousands of other date rapists. So it's nothing special. You put something in a drink, you wait for somebody to get incapacitated, you take advantage of them. It's so
correct. But
if the show is not a plan, maybe.
Right. the reason I brought it up, I have some questions about Derek Smith's story. However, there are several other lawsuits that tell a very similar story in the sense that someone was slipped a drink, they passed out, and then they were sodomized in the
Yeah, but Mike,
same
as
way.
an exercise of storytelling, I could take those complaints
Well,
and what I know about
but
the books and write my
Smith's
own, and
too,
I could write a
right?
very convincing affidavit for that,
But Smith's was one of the first ones, so he
was one of
wouldn't
the
know.
first ones. But is it
Right?
any different than any prior date rape type situation? Think
He
about
might,
it.
and he was in jail. I don't know how much he would know. It
Well,
doesn't
he
mean.
has a very functional imagination and a lot of time in jail.
Right, I know.
Sit
Well,
around and
yeah,
say,
but
well, if Diddy were to have date raped me, how would he have done it? Almost like
correct. But he, it certainly lends credence to his story that other stories have come out with a similar MO. Am I right? That doesn't mean it's true, but
I
it
think
certainly.
maybe I
Right.
think maybe a little more than not, but I think we're verging upon a heuristic. A heuristic of commonality. It's a common occurrence.
Mhm.
Therefore, for some reason, it adds weight to the evidence. I don't think it's adding weight to the evidence. I think it's talking about how date rape happens. I don't think I don't think that it's going more than to that. I don't think it's adding to the evidence.
Well, all right, maybe. I, I think it helps. I think it doesn't mean that what Derek Smith says is true, but it certainly lends some credence to it. That's why I wanted to point it out. And it definitely looks like the MO of Sean Diddy Combs is to slip you a drink and then sodomize you. And that I've seen. So you wanted to talk about some Biden. Uh, he he did some pardons, some very controversial pardons. You had one, I think it's Chicago,
Well,
but I wanted to
I brought it up because
or
it's
out
your
of Illinois. I'm
backyard.
sorry.
It's your backyard. You know this story better than anybody because you're out there. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering what's going on with Biden at this point.
Mhm.
Where if
I don't know if the lady was the mayor, and I believe it's the town that Ronald Reagan was born in. I don't know how much time he spent there, but she embezzled an awful lot of money. Not necessarily like compared to other people, but this is a relatively small town. So for that size of a town, she embezzled a lot of money. She should have stayed in jail. He gave her a pardon. That's ridiculous. But let me get up another story, and I think this is much more ridiculous than the one that you wanted to talk about. Biden pardoned one of I'm sorry, he didn't pardon him, clemency. So he ended the guy's prison sentence, and it's Conahan, Judge Michael Conahan. So he was one of two judges on the what notorious Kids for Cash scandal, and these judges were prosecuted under RICO, so they were a criminal enterprise. They were both taking money from a for-profit prison and then imposing ridiculously strong sentence for everything from truancy to talking back to your teacher, things that shouldn't put a kid in juvenile hall. And they were all sending them to this prison. Some kids killed themselves. Lots of kids have all kinds of scars, emotional, financial, physical from it. And he commuted the sentence of one of these two judges. Absolutely outrageous that he did this. This, in my opinion, is as bad as any of the pardons or commutations that he's had, this particular judge, Michael Conahan.
this is far worse than Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon.
Right. Well, Ford had a good reason to do it.
And there's no good reason for this one.
There is none. I'd say that these two are maybe the two worst judges in the history of the U.S. What they did is, the gravity of what they did can't be overstated. What did they have? I think they sentenced over 1,000 kids to this prison. They were
Yeah.
trying to throw kids into juvenile hall because they got millions of dollars in bribes from that one particular prison. This was a naked play for greed and to take advantage of kids. And some of them committed
Such a
suicide,
violation of
others
the
had
public
other
trust.
problems. It's
Disgusting.
horrible.
Violation of public trust. It's disgusting.
Mhm.
And that's
It is, and he should still be in jail. And there's no reason why he commuted his sentence. I have no now. I wanted to get a couple of updates in Syria. So last week I mentioned that the guy who took over, you may want to be cautiously optimistic about the position that this guy is taking. Now, where is? Hold on. Hold on? I need to find it. And uh, I'm looking at the press from. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so I've been looking at the press from people who have a strong understanding of Syria, and so let's take a look at what this guy found, and let me get this up. All right, so the title, pleasantly surprisingly new ruler so far. So here's what it says. In its second week after Assad, Syria continues to ride a wave of euphoria and hope, bolstered by pleasant surprises from its new de facto leader and whatever his name is. Over the weekend, he told journalists that in the Middle East, the Islamist Iran regime is the problem, saying the right things, and that he chooses diplomacy to settle disputes with Israel. That's interesting. And while the hardships of government will certainly complicate and maybe even derail his journey towards his stated goals, his start has been nothing short of excellent. So far, this guy isn't throwing a bunch of people into jail. He's not threatening war. And he is saying that he wants to govern. So we may be pleasantly surprised by the guy that takes over for Assad. We may be. But I'm not jumping on. I'm not a fanboy yet or anything like that. But we should be watching this guy. Who knows?
Mike, I will never be a fanboy because he's taking a page out of Yasser Arafat's playbook. That's all he's doing here. Yasser Arafat went to the UN General Assembly and gave this speech about the olive branch and this and that and the other thing. And Yasser, he loves peace. No, he doesn't want to get demolished by Israel. Israel should have every right to turn half of those countries in that region into glass. To raise Tehran to the ground, to raise Damascus to the ground, to turn the Gaza Strip into a parking lot, and they would be justified, morally, legally, and otherwise. And the fact that we want to do peace,
I think he realpolitik. You ever heard of that term? I think he realizes what you're saying, and he's not trying to pick a fight with Israel. Watch him. We all may be pleasantly surprised. On that note, Tucker Carlson with another ridiculous, and I hope I've got it. Yeah, here it is, with another ridiculous interview, and it's about Syria. So I've got it set up. All right, this guy Jeffrey said, I can't believe he put him on, but let's listen for like 2.5 minutes, and I got one more thing to put up.
For no particular reason, by the way, but he launched 2 of these wars on the list of 7. He launched the war to bring down the Libyan government, Muammar Gaddafi, in the fall of, the war started in March 2011. And he and Hillary Clinton, his Secretary of State, said Assad must go in the spring of 2011. I remember scratching my head at the time saying, oh, that's interesting. How are they going to do that? Syria was a normal functioning country at the time, despite whatever you read.
Normal functioning country under Assad, and we started that war. You heard him, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if he's ever heard of this woman. Have you ever heard of this woman? You ever heard of her? Fadwa Suleiman.
Yes.
She died, unfortunately, of cancer. She's an Alawite. She's from the exact same sect as Assad. When the civil war started, she became one of the most prominent voices because she said She wanted the world to know that not all the Alawites are with Assad. We didn't start this war. People like her started the war. And when it got too hairy and it was too much of a problem to continue to protect her in Syria, she did a daring escape through Turkey into France. And unfortunately, she developed cancer several years later and she died. I always thought that Angelina Jolie should play her in a movie because they have similar, they resemble each other. But this idea that we started the war and that it was great, that's all nonsense. And if you know anything about Fadwa Suleiman and what she went through, you know what this guy is saying is total garbage. And this isn't the first time Tucker's had someone who's a pseudo historian on, and no one cares. He's spouting off nonsense left and right, and he is in a position to make policy for the Trump administration. So anything you wanted to add on that? Am I wrong? Did the U.S. actually push Assad out?
Come on. Assad was an authoritarian dictator. His family was authoritarian dictators. And the United States has started nothing in the Middle East. You have to go back 5,000 years to look at root causes.
Right. I agree. What that guy said is such a bunch of nonsense. And Tucker's just nodding along.
Do a better job of challenging people that spout bullshit in front of him.
I don't think he's challenging him because he agrees with the guy.
He should have done. No, he doesn't agree with Putin. He didn't agree with Putin when he sat across from him. He just let him talk. So I think he's got to do a better job as a journalist. I like Tucker. I think he's got to do a better job as a journalist and ask questions. And he doesn't do that.
All right. So let's move on to our stuff. So we have a segment called Scumbag Lawyer of the Week. And I'm going to get the scumbag lawyer, but I got to play this. What this guy did, it reminded me of this. Did you ever see this from Seinfeld?
No, here we
go. It's come to my attention that you and the cleaning woman have engaged in sexual intercourse on the desk in your office. Is that correct? Who said that? She did. Was that wrong? Should I not have done that?
Was that wrong? Should I not have done that? So check out what this lawyer did. Are you ready? I'm going to do an article on this. For now, it's an anonymous lawyer. All right, here we go. While Miss Savage was Cook's client in the Crippen matter, he began a sexual relationship and conceived the child with Miss Savage. Moreover, while Miss Savage was still Cook's client, the parties secretly married. The day after the secret wedding, Cook entered into a business transaction with Miss Savage's then client. Cook presented Miss Savage with a prenuptial agreement. Miss Savage was not advised of the desirability to obtain separate independent legal counsel, nor has reasonable. Is it wrong to have sex with your client, get him pregnant, and secretly?
I'm wrong.
That's frowned upon.
Yeah.
You were a lawyer. Is that frowned upon?
Yeah, make this shit up, Mike.
He had sex with his client. He got her pregnant. He secretly married her, and he continued to represent her. Wait till this whole story comes out. All right. So we've got another segment that I call Paul Boyne Got Screwed. So Paul Boyne, he's probably at 18 months now, sitting first in a Virginia jail for a little while, now in a Connecticut jail for saying things like, this judge, such and such judge is so bad, it'd be nice to put a 50 cal in his head. And someone should use the Second Amendment against that judge, and on and on. And it was statements like that. And we had it up last time. You know what? I'll get it up again. So the segment that we use is I try to scour the internet for things that are at least as bad as Paul said that aren't charged. And I got two of them, and these are interesting. So the first one, let me see if I've got this. Yeah, so check this out. This socialist is starting a line of clothes where he puts after the United Healthcare CEO got killed, he puts CEOs' faces on T-shirts with like an X or like a like you're in the like a crosshair. Can you believe that? So that seems to be as bad as what Paul did. He's not getting
That's
charged.
protected. Remember, Watts? It's protected.
It,
USC
it
Watts.
is protected. So is what Paul did, though. That's the point I'm making. If this guy is allowed to make T-shirts with faces of CEOs with a bullseye on them, how come Paul is sitting in jail for 18 months? But yeah, it's protected. It's despicable, but it is definitely protected. And by the way, the socialist says, quote, "I'm not suggesting anyone should cause any physical harm to anyone, but I do want people to know who is making their life harder, who is stealing from them, who is deciding that a couple more percent points of profit is worth more than the life of your loved one." And
Look,
so that's what.
Yeah, he's got a basis. He's got members of the Senate, Elizabeth Warren, who, in one breath, condemned the violence, the Mangione violence, but also in the next breath said that there was some merit to looking at the CEOs of these companies and their activities. So you can't say that it's not an argument without political merit. Now, you're 100% right. The second he crosses the barrier to say that there should be any type of violence, it becomes a different story.
All right, now this is out of Connecticut, which is where Paul's case, and we call this Paul Boyne got screwed, but really we should say William Maisano got screwed. So I think this is Mr. Maisano. He's pretty conservative. He's very concerned about the leftward slant of the schools, and then he found out that that one of the teachers in the school she's gonna like wear pride colors to the graduation event. And so he writes an email to the principal. You ready? Now this isn't the full email, but it's close to the whole thing, and then I'll tell you the part that's troubling according to them. "If I see her dragging her personal politics and sexual preferences in this event, there is going to be hell to pay. As a teacher, by law, she will be crossing the line, and so will the school by not shutting this down." How much jail time should he do for that email?
He should get a friggin' medal. That's what he should get for that email.
All right. So for those who don't know, this is the part that got him in trouble. Hell to pay. That's what they claimed was a threat, and he actually got convicted. They gave him probation. He's not going to do any jail time. Can you believe that?
How many times did John Wayne say there's going to be hell to pay in his movie?
Right.
What the heck has happened to our country? What the heck has happened to our country?
But I am concerned for Paul. This is in Connecticut. They are just violating your First Amendment right, left and right. It's unbelievable. This guy I don't know how he got convicted. The person who sent this to me said, "I'd like to know what the jury instructions were." I don't know what the jury instructions were, but yeah, felony threatening to charge and disturbing the peace. It was ridiculous that they charged this guy. They convicted him somehow. Ridiculous. Now, you have been doing some stuff on this guy, Dinesh.
Oh,
and
God.
You broke a story that the feds may be going after him. Am I right? But so describe what he's doing, and then I got a visual.
Okay, so there's a guy named Dinesh Nushirvan. He goes by the handle @ThatDineshGuy, and he is a TikToker. He was on all the social media channels for a while, but he's only on TikTok and I believe Instagram now, because on X he's been deplatformed, as well as on others, Facebook, because he doxed the Supreme Court justices after the Dobbs opinion. He disagreed with
and dox meaning that he actually put up
their addresses, their home addresses, and their and everything else on the internet. And afterwards, Brett Kavanaugh received a death threat. And so the fact of the matter is, this guy is engaged in that type of activity, not just with Supreme Court justices, who are some of the most protected people in this country and in the world, but with private citizens. And he basically crossed the line in October, a couple months ago, where Aaron Delatour, a high school teacher and coach, he basically took a video out of context It wasn't even the video of an incident; it was the aftermath of an incident, and turned this cancel culture woke mob against this guy who was a football coach. And it drove him to the point where he ended up killing himself. He committed suicide because of Dinesh's harassment, and because of basically the state of the law is that there's a list post Sandusky and post Dr. Nasser that if you have any type of touching, even you grab a kid and say, "What are you doing, horsing around?" or you're grooming the kid, it's not distinguishable. So this coach had a credible threat that Dinesh's and the cancel culture mob's fury would put him on that list, and he was done as a coach. They went to the school board, they went to the police. The police turned around and said, "There's nothing here." And the police there are investigating. Frank Parlato broke the fact that they're investigating there. And I've heard from law enforcement sources with knowledge that this guy is on the FBI radar as well, because there are over 100 complaints about this guy. And he's being looked at, and the source, actually one of the sources told me that he would not be surprised if this thing is escalated come the Trump administration because of what's happened. He doesn't understand how it hadn't been prior, given the source of conduct.
You're breaking through anonymous sources, but you had a problem with the New York Times breaking through anonymous sources. How come your reporting is okay, even if it's based on anonymous sources?
No, that's why I'm protecting them. They ask for confidentiality. Maybe
I think the New York Times asked for protection.
No, I'll say this. My people asked for it, and I don't know if the New York Times people asked for it. And the fact is, my people aren't public figures. I think the Times would have.
You don't know who the New York Times was talking to.
Now, I don't know.
You were covering another case, and both you and I invited this guy on. I don't know who he is. I did invite him on.
I believe that to be guy named James McGivney. He runs.
All right. Now he has some problems with your reporting. However, when I actually look at it, he has just like one problem that we wanted to talk about. So Jennifer Couture, that's another person who he harassed. How did he harass this lady?
Well, Jen Couture was in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, and she had a bad day, but she had a worse day because this woman named Angelique Reed, who apparently she looks like she was stoned. She'd been smoking pot in her car in previous videos that she's posted to TikTok, and she almost T-boned Jennifer and her 15-year-old daughter who were in the car. And so there was an altercation, and this Angelique starts recording after the incident occurs, after the fact again. And it's a parking lot situation, and it becomes selectively altered and presented by Dinesh. Dinesh receives the copy, and then his cancel culture woke mob turn around, and they start harassing the local government, harassing Sheriff Marceno's office, harassing Amira Fox, the local state attorney, and they call for their judge, jury, and executioner through what we believe are AI-generated phone calls, AI-generated emails, AI-generated social media disdain, saying this woman needs to be arrested, where the local offices of government were inundated and flooded with almost 1,000 emails a day.
This guy, whoever this is, says your reporting is false because, in fact, Miss Couture did plead guilty to battery.
Yeah.
Is your reporting false? His argument is that he did the right thing. He directed the authorities to this batterer, and she pled guilty. What's the problem? Why are you attacking him? He did a public service. Your lady is a batterer.
Weaponized lawfare, number one, because this is, I don't believe, and it's falls on Amira Fox, and I'm working on an issue with her within the courts, the deep dive that will be coming out with soon, about how she's not making good prosecutorial decisions, but this is beyond the pale, because it looks like it was a fraudulently influenced prosecutorial decision, which may in fact stem from foreign agent actors. And so by virtue of the fact that we have the TikTok and the ByteDance platform, which is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, one of the things we're chasing down is whether or not Dinesh Nashirvan is an agent of a foreign government, wittingly or unwittingly. And this is part of an active measure or a psyop to sow dissent. Think about it. Michael Volpe, you could be targeted by the Chinese Communist Party because you say bad things about them for law enforcement, local law enforcement. That would
How
be
is
inundated.
this lady is not an enemy of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yes, she
Dinesh
is.
wasn't-
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. She's white. She's Republican. She's conservative.
Right.
And what they're
All right,
trying to do
so
is they're
the
trying to, the
second
Chinese
problem
Communist
here-
Party. No, Mike, let me finish this important point. The Chinese government, and if you look to what the Communist Party was doing with the Soviet Union, their goal is to break down the traditional fabric of America, and their goal is to subvert. There's already a bunch of literature out there about how a lot of these OnlyFans type pages are being funded by foreign government influences, because the idea is that if you get a young girl in their 20s start doing that type of lifestyle for 2, 3, 4 years, then they're destroyed for an entire life. They can't be a mother. They can't be anything that comes back to a traditional life that would be positive to society. And it's an easy way to subvert. I believe this is part, and we're working on getting the evidence that this is part of a subversion plan. And I've actually submitted this to intelligence people that are connected to the incoming Trump administration so far, and I'm continuing to talk with them about this. So this is
the second problem he had, and before the ink was even dry in her guilty plea, she had contracted with a twice convicted felon and notorious cyberstalker Joseph Camp as a quote-unquote employee of the plastic surgery company that she runs, as a cover for him to get vengeance for her against that Dinesh guy. And you didn't bother to point that out. You are hiding very pertinent information regarding this case. What do you have to say for yourself?
Well, what I'll do is I'm coming out with a piece about a new email that I obtained from a protected source. So I'll say confidential source again. That shows an invoice from a third party company that's easily subpoenable and verifiable. That there are these sites that were purchased by Joseph Camp, thatDineshGuy.com, thatGuyDinesh.org, thatDineshGuy.net, and they were purchased September of 2021, which was months before the Dunkin' Donuts incident. The battle between this guy, Joey Camp, and Dinesh and McGivney of Bullyville has predated Jen Couture. It is actually an ongoing
Who
battle.
is this guy, Joseph Camp? Is he is he a
Camp
notorious cyber stalker? Why is she hiring him?
No, Joey Camp is just he's an internet guy. He's just he's the opposite end of the spectrum of these guys. These guys are woke. Joey Camp is like an alt-right guy. And so it's like spy versus spy. One's a black spy, one's the white spy, and every chance that they get, they try to dump on each other. The claim is that he's a stalker because Dinesh says his children were victimized, which is bullshit. He says that CPS got called, this one got called, that one got called. Yet at the same period of time, Dinesh and his followers were calling, CPS on Jen Couture's children, calling the probation department on Jen Couture. It's like it's Darvo. They claim to do what the other person is doing, so they're saying, oh no, you did this to me, but they're doing it themselves. And, anyone understands Darvo as manipulative narcissism.
Projection, as they call it.
Narcissism.
And by the way, that is pretty much the entirety of the criticism this guy had, that you should have mentioned that she pled guilty, which I think you did, and that you're not talking enough about Joey Camp.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about Joey Camp because he's like a minor figure in the lawsuit because he's lurking in the background, and half the lawsuit is devoted to Joey Camp, but that's not the facts that are being presented. And actually, the facts that Nick Chiappetta, the attorney, has presented are based on time travel. They're based on facts, the things that couldn't have happened without a break in time. Unless they had a time machine, they couldn't have known the things that they quote unquote claim to know.
I'm going to try to run through this as quickly as I can, but this is a long and complex story. In about a 10-month period from December of 2017 to October of 2018, brother and sisters Ed and Marcy Sherman died. They died under mysterious circumstances. They very well may have been murdered by different people, I believe, if one or both of them were. And it all surrounds what started as a house guest from hell. This woman, Barbara Garrison, was the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend of a former client, Ed Sherman. As you can see, he was a very successful entertainment lawyer. He has a bunch of these like sales awards because he was involved in a lot of big records. This lady moves in. She takes over his life. She won't leave. So Ed Sherman's sister, who is also an attorney, reaches out to a friend, this guy, Andy Shapiro, who runs the Lewitt-Hackman law firm. Ed Shapiro puts her in touch with Kira Mastler, one of like his top guns in the law firm. She is supposed to do one thing and one thing only, put together a settlement agreement that in effect buys off Barbara Garrison for $12,000 right there. She does do that, but she does so much more. She basically keeps the family away. And on October 20, I think, 22nd, he winds up in a hospital, or on December 22nd, he winds up in a hospital. On December 25th, he is dead. And I want to show one other thing. So if you can see, these are bruises from this guy. It's typed out December 22nd, but later they write December 23rd. I spoke to a friend of Marcy's mom. Her name is Karen, and she believes that this is correct, which means that the injuries occurred before he went into the hospital. If the injuries occurred before they went into the hospital, they would have occurred while he was living at home with Barbara Garrison. She would be a suspect, but the official cause of death is blunt head force trauma that occurred in the hospital. They refused to investigate it. Then Marcy goes through hell trying to figure out what happened to her brother. Her son, who was estranged, takes her in, and within a week and a half, she is dead. And we've got Dave Weigel on, but you got to hear, this is the interview I did with her son, Fred Berger. You've got to hear this interview.
Hello.
So I was looking for Fred Berger.
This is him.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Mike Volpe. I am an investigative journalist, and I'm looking into the death of your mom, Marcia, a few years ago. Do you have a few minutes to talk to me?
No, actually, I'm getting ready to move. I'm packing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like my attorney's phone number?
Your attorney's phone number? Why would I need to talk to your attorney about your mom's death?
I don't know, because she can talk to you.
Okay, what is your attorney's name? Seems like he's got something to hide. Now,
A little bit.
a private investigator looked into this, and he found that this guy was changing all sorts of documents while his mom lived with him and moving a lot of money around. And by the way, and the same private investigator's name is Greg Everett, said no one from law enforcement called him to interview him, even though his mom was living with him right before she died. She was put into, I think, hospice care, but right when she died. But she moved in with him, I think, on October 17th, 2018. And by October 28th, 2018, she's dead. And you just heard him. He was moving money around. This is a horrible story. There's a lot more to it.